To further improve your conversational effectiveness, you want to protect the privacy of your conversation. That is, you have to consider who can hear what you're saying and who you're exposed to at the time of conversation. I think this is really complicated when we begin to consider technology and its effects on our interpersonal relationships, because I find just when I'm walking across campus or sitting in a restaurant that people are on their cell phones, it seems like constantly. I can recall not too long ago sitting at a restaurant and looking over at a table in which there were about 5 people there, and not a single person at the table was talking to one another. They were all either talking on their cell phone or texting someone on their cell phone. And I thought, wow, they could have saved a lot of money and just ate at home by themselves and accomplished the same goal. But really and truly, you have to think about where you are when you're having certain conversations, because you don't want everyone to overhear what you're saying. But it doesn't just go with technology and having a conversation maybe via email, texting, which someone may be able to read that text if they got a hold of your phone, or someone may be able to read your email if you leave it up on your computer, but also with calling someone, and then even in face-to-face. If you're going to have a serious conversation with someone about a relationship, or maybe a conflict that you're having, or a difficult issue, and maybe you're making a very intimate self-disclosure to them, you probably don't want to have it, let's say, out in the open or in the middle of Starbucks where people are coming in and out constantly, and you may be running into acquaintances that you have that end up sitting down and visiting with you at the same time. You have to gauge what you're trying to communicate, and then make sure that you don't want other people to overhear if you're having the conversation in a public place. Also, you want your dialogue to be ethical. That is, you want to show authenticity by being direct and honest with the other person and being genuine with them. Also, you want to demonstrate empathy by really showing that you understand the other person through perception checks, by trying to have parallel emotional responses, by thinking about what they're going through and putting yourself in their shoes as perspective taking. You also want to demonstrate confirmation of the other person, that is affirming who they are, showing them warmth. This is not agreeing with them though. And many people get confused between confirmation and agreement. Confirmation is just saying, look, I think you're worthy, I think that you're interesting, I think that you're unique, and I value you. That's what confirmation is. It's not necessarily agreement. Also, you want to show attentiveness by resisting distractions, by focusing on them, by maybe even sacrificing some of your time that you could have spent doing something else by focusing on them in the conversation at hand. You want to show equality by treating them as a peer and trying to have a dialogue rather than a discussion or a debate with them. And you want to show support by praising the other person and their worthwhile contributions that they're making to the conversation. These are just a few ways that you can improve conversational effectiveness, but there are a couple of things to consider in conversations. One is the cultural context. A high context culture relies on a lot of nonverbal cues and the context, whether it be the relational, historical, physical context, in order to garner meaning, whereas low context cultures value more directness. And so conversations are going to differ, and the rules for conversations will differ based on low context and high context culture. For example, in low context cultures like the United States, there's a lot of use of categorical words so that you can understand the labels that are being placed on ideas and people. Also, there is a great value for relevant comments, so the relevancy maxim is very important in low context cultures. Also, when you interpret the quality maxim, it's focused on truth telling. That is, be direct, be honest, don't beat around the bush, tell me what you have to say, make sure that you're not leaving anything out. Also, in a low context culture, in a conversation, if you were to be silent, that would make the other person feel uncomfortable. Now, juxtapose this with a high context culture where they use a lot of qualifiers and they hedge around what they're saying. They also have responses that are more indirect and ambiguous. They are less relevant, and so you may have difficulty if you're in a cross-cultural relationship. You're coming from a low context culture, talking to someone in a high context culture. You may be thinking, just spit it out, tell me what you think. Yet that would be rude in their culture. Also, the quality maxim is operating through harmony. And so they're not going to reveal something that they think would hurt your feelings or that might make you upset in any way, because their focus is going to be on harmony. Also, silences can be very meaningful in high context cultures, and they can carry with them maybe disciplinary action that they wouldn't want to be more direct and say out loud. They also could convey intimacy. So you have to consider the context of the culture. Also, you need to understand the implications of the channel that you select to communicate in conversations. And sometimes I think we take for granted with technology that we can just text someone or we can just give them a call rather than having a face-to-face encounter with them. Yet there's some topics that really and truly you want to be able to see the other person's nonverbal facial expressions. You want to be able to hear the nuances in their tone of voice in order to really gauge their emotional response. You also have to consider physical context. So I want you to think about where you're having the conversation, how you're having the conversation, not just the topic that's being covered. And you also need to be a committed listener to be a good conversationalist. And we'll talk more about listening next week.